who was in Christian Science and who had found it, having moved to New York City. And honestly, I didn't really have any interest in it because I was a seeker, but I didn't want somebody telling me how to think, or I didn't want to prescribe to a organized religion, an organized way of thinking. I just was wanting to be more of a free spirit. But I did come very closely in contact with the ideas in science and health. Eventually, I attended a youth meeting that spoke very deeply to my heart. And this family member, I used to go to church on Wednesday nights so I could go out to eat with her afterwards because it seemed like the only time we ever got together. But then I heard ideas expressed in those Wednesday night meetings that I'd never really thought about so deeply, and the ways that people were talking about God and how powerful God really was in their lives. I thought, wow, if God really exists like this, I want to know God. So those ideas spoke to me, and then I became very ill with a very bad case of the flu. Was working with a lot of other waiters. We were actors doing other things, and we were all sick, and they were talking about having gone to the doctor, and I'm thinking I didn't go to the doctor. Maybe I should have, because I had an audition the next day, which was a call back for a off-Broadway show, and I had to sing and be in top voice, and I had no voice when I went to bed that night, zero. I couldn't even speak. And all I did before I went to bed was read a chapter in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy, and it was the chapter on prayer. And toward the end of the chapter, she mentions the Lord's Prayer and how it meets all human needs. And somehow it just spoke to me that somewhere in that, the last few pages of that chapter, she talks about how instantaneously it heals the sick. And so I just recited aloud that prayer, maybe 3 times, with as much voice as I could muster out, but it was really more than the voice, it was just the feeling and my desire to be healed, and to understand what this was that I had been hearing on Wednesday evenings, and to know if it really worked. And I fell asleep after just praying that prayer about 3 times or so, and woke up the next morning, and I got up and I'm in the shower and I'm vocalizing and I'm singing before I realized, oh my gosh, I'm healed. I can sing. I'm not sick. I mean, it just didn't even occur to me because I felt so good that I'd been healed. And I went and I did this audition, and it was a Wednesday. And I went to church that night, and the very first hymn that they were singing, the words were, "Let all the earth with songs rejoice. Let heaven return the joyful voice." And I was like, wow, this works, So that was my first big healing in Christian Science, and it's only gotten better since that time. I've had some very significant, maybe as some would term them, more serious situations to deal with, and they've been healed too. This year I had this healing of a back issue, and the thing that really stood out to me about that particular healing was the fact that I realized how it was not so much a physical problem, although it seemed to be very much a physical problem. And my mobility was extremely limited throughout about a 4-month period. Although there were some progressive steps along the way, it still seemed to be very much there. And it was when I realized that it was connected to some more mental issues, a behavior that would just stir up sometimes when things didn't go the way I needed them to go, you know, my willful sense of things, you know, and I would react and I would overreact and not be so kind necessarily to people that were close to me, you know, that you feel like they can, somehow you can get away with not being on your best behavior. And I realized that that behavior was what really needed to go, because it was no part of who I really was as God's beloved child. It was not the way I wanted to behave. I always felt like such a heel afterwards because it wasn't me, and it was foreign to who I really am. And when I realized that, I made such a concerted effort whenever those things would happen in the future that, you know, didn't go my way, or little things that would try to throw me. I was not going to react to them. I was going to be more loving, and in my efforts to be more loving, before I knew it, I was free of that situation. So it really wasn't about the back issue or something else connected to the back issue. It was really about the behavioral issue that needed to change. I'm so inspired by her example because she had so many obstacles, you know, and you think of the things in your life that would break your heart. You know, she lost her first husband, she lost her only child, and he was taken from her, and then she remarried with the hopes of getting that child back, and that man had no intention of helping her do that and was unfaithful to her. And then she loses her third husband, who she truly loved, after only being married about 5 years. And it was one human tragedy after another, and yet she still was about giving healing to the world and helping us to understand that we can overcome these obstacles. The impact that she's had on the world is huge. I'm in awe of all that she did, and when I catch myself saying, I don't have time for this and I don't have time for that, I need to stop and remember all that she did do with so much less to work with. If you're just looking at all the things that are going on in the world and the problems that people are facing on a daily basis, and you watch the news and you read the newspaper and you listen to what the media is dishing out, it's very easy to get pulled into the drama of it all. And rather than fall into the currents of all of that, I think what you understand as you are growing in your understanding of Christian Science, you understand how to rise above those currents, and instead of swimming through them, mentally, to be able to be 11 at work in being a part of the solutions, and trusting that the prayerful work that you do has an impact in the world. I'm so grateful for Christian Science. I'm so grateful for Mary Baker Eddy. I'm so grateful for how it teaches me every day to be a light in the world and be an influence for good.